Okay, hi. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I believe so. Oh man. Hi. Happy Monday to all. Happy book club day. Um Oh, I am hearing my own voice. Where is that coming from? Hold on. There it is. Okay, hi. Hi. A star shines in the honor of our meeting. Hi, friends. Hi, Nick. Hi, Wild. Hi, Falco. Hi, James. Hi, Andrew. Hello. How was everyone's weekend? I hope it was good. So where? Okay, that's fine. Yes. Hello. Happy Monday. So good to see you all. I have had just the best day, and I'm so excited to chat Lord of the Rings with y'all before I crash. Before you go to bed midnight there, I understand. It's only 5 here, but I spent most of the day in the sun. Well, I had a 90-minute massage and then I spent the day at the pool. I took the day off of work. It was really nice and really needed. Kendra, let's go. I'm so glad you made it. I'm so glad you made it. So I know I have this blur in my camera. This is how many pages we read this week, right? Not that many. My book goes from page 81 to page 152, right? Not that many. Not even 100 pages. Yeah, not even 100 pages. And so freaking much happened. So much happened. I honestly... Okay, cool. I'm kind of in shock about how much happened in the pages of this book. I don't have this music on, do I? Off that, okay. When we Return of the King upload, can't wait. So I am not posting any Struck content right now because of the strikes. So it will go up publicly when the strikes end. Struck, and for anyone that's wondering, Struck content is content that was produced by an AMPTP company or whatever the acronym is. But my reaction is edited and everything. It just is in limbo. I'm not publicly posting it or anything or promoting it because the strikes suck, and the movies that we love and these things are only as good as they are because of the people who are in them, both in front of the screen and behind the scene, you know. But it's not any better because of the CEOs sitting on their yachts, I'll tell you that much, in my opinion. They can run a business maybe, but they yeah, so that's where it is. It won't be posted until after the strikes. I've made a couple of announcements about it, but I know that announcements can be easy to miss. Yes, quite a lot does happen in these chapters. People often think the first book is boring, but it's so full of, oh yeah, literally, like we see, like, chapter 3 is kind of like the planning to leave chapter, and then chapter 4 we get to what's the name of chapter 4? A short... Oh, wait, okay, so chapter 3 we start to plan to leave, and then we do leave, right? And then chapter 4 the adventure continues and we take the shortcut to mushrooms, and that chapter is fucking delightful. I mean, you know, a little scary at times. And then chapter 5 is that when they get to Brandybuck? I think so. Yeah. So then we get to Brandybuck, and then okay. Let's outline like kind of what happens in these chapters, because something I would love to do is like try to keep the conversation to like these chapters as much as possible today, while like we can allude to the movies and we can call back on the first couple of chapters, you know, as much as possible, like kind of breaking down these chapters that we read, chapters 3 through 6. So we start out, we're still in the Shire, and Frodo and Gandalf is telling us to start prepping to leave. Now, that's important, because at this moment, at the start of chapter 3, Gandalf is still somewhat there. And Frodo is planning for his 50th birthday, which he said he's planning to leave the Shire on his 50th birthday, right? And so we get to know Merry and Pip a little bit more. And of course, Sam is there. Oh yeah, and then Gandalf leaves very mysteriously. That's what happens. He says he's heard something and that he needs to leave. So all of a sudden, Gandalf is gone. Frodo has this party, and is planning to leave. He's sold his house to the Sackville Bagginses. Hi, Rachie. And he's leaving. He has this plan. He's set aside this plan to move to Brandybuck with Sam, and he's saying that like he's run out of money and he's got to go. He wants to go back to where he grew up, right? We start to see that there's like someone following them when they're still in the Shire. Actually, pretty early on in chapter 3, we start to see that someone is following them in the Shire, and I'm seeing your comments, and I'm just going through like the recap kind of what's going on, and then I'll read your comments. So I'm not ignoring you guys, I promise. So I'm just making sure I get all the points I want to get. Okay, so we're still in the Shire. We've sold the house. It's the final day. Sam and Frodo and Pip set out on the road, right? Merry is taking all of Frodo's stuff to Brandybuck. And so this mysterious guy, Frodo overhears that this guy is asking about him, and so they decide to take this back road instead of taking like the normal road they would take. And okay, yes. And then as they're going, as they're walking, they're being like kind of, there's a slight lack of urgency. Frodo obviously is on a mission. Sam will do anything Frodo says, and we'll get to the Sam Frodo. I think that the relationship between Sam and Frodo is quite different in this than it is in the movies. Or it feels different. It's not different in like Sam's loyalty or Sam's love or that friendship, but the dynamic is shown in a different way in the books. It's really like honed in that Sam is Frodo's employee, more or less. And then the elves, and then we see the Dark Riders, right? Or the Dark Rider, and then all of a sudden we see the elves, and Pip goes, "Excuse me, do you know anything about these hooded, cloaked Dark Riders?" And the elves go, "Oh, I'm sorry. What? You know what? Why don't you guys come with us? No reason. Just why don't you guys just, you know, come with us. No sleeping. We're walking." Like literally Pip is falling asleep, falling down, and the elves are like holding him up, right? And then they sit and they have this like lovely dinner and drinks and evening with the elves, and that's when we meet Gildor. And Gildor is such an interesting character because he is so calm and wise and also very elven in that he says things like, for advice is a dangerous gift, even from the wise to the wise, and all courses may run ill. So like he's trying to give Frodo advice, but also trying not to give Frodo advice all at the same time. But he does end up giving Frodo advice in the end, and he's like, you should probably go and go quickly. Like you should not dilly-dally. So Frodo, he'd said advice. They wake up the next morning and Frodo is like, okay, we're gonna eat and we're going, and we're not going on the main road. We're taking this shortcut. We're gonna go the hard way. And that's a really fun time because Frodo and Pip get into it a little bit, not like negatively, but let's skedaddle. Exactly. Oh, thank you. Buckland is where they're going. Brandybuck is Mary's last name. No, you're not pedantic. Yes, thank you. And so they take this side road, right? And they get stuck. But it's kind of funny because they had this conversation, right, about shortcuts make long delays, is what Pip said. But then Pip said that he wanted to go to this place called the Golden Perch and get an ale. And so Frodo says, well, yeah, okay, shortcuts make delays, but inns make longer ones. So they decide to do the shortcut. It does end up taking time. While they're down there, they get stuck and they look up at the hill, right? And they see that they're being followed, or that the Dark Rider has found them, but can't get down on his horse. So they continue on their way. They get into this place where we talked about this in last week's book club meeting about how Tolkien will sometimes write characters as they like appear to him in his storytelling. And obviously we know that, or maybe we don't know, but Tolkien is like, from my understanding, Tolkien has edited his books to a wild amount. So like he wrote the books in a very like, as it came to him, he wrote them, but he also very heavily edited his books as they went on. But I do think, I wouldn't be surprised if, what's his name? Maggot. If Maggot was one of those characters that's like, you know what would be perfect here? These mushrooms. I want to put this backstory where Frodo had been in trouble as a kid because he was stealing mushrooms, and we know that hobbits love mushrooms, we know that hobbits love food, and so what if we make this thing where like Frodo was this bad kid stealing mushrooms from this guy, and all full circle, then we have to sneak through his fields and he catches us and he invites us in for dinner, and then he's like, oh, so anyway, yeah, there's these Dark Riders following you, and I'll get you to the ferry. I'll get you to the ferry safely. Don't even worry about it. And he does just that. He feeds them, he talks to them. He doesn't like pry too much about what's happening. He brings them to the ferry. We're on the way to the ferry. We hear some hoof steps, and we think it's the Dark Rider. Lo and behold, no, it's Mary. Mary has come to find us. Mary's been worried, and so then Maggot is like, okay, I'm out of here. Good luck, have fun, and here's some mushrooms for your journey. And the Brandybucks do live in Buckland. Yes. Behind the scenes draft. At this point, Tolkien is still writing the Hobbit sequel. Lots of fun Hobbit chat. The Shadow of the Past chapter is just scribbled notes. Make a journey to take the ring somewhere. That's one of the earlier chapters, right? Bye, Felicia. Have some mushrooms. Exactly. Oh yeah, come have a drink. Don't stress about the Black Rider. Yes, exactly. Okay, so then chapter 5, A Conspiracy Unmasked. We're in Buckland, not Brandybuck. We're in Buckland, and this is so okay. So We get across. Frodo asks pretty immediately. He's like, okay, so how long can a horse get across this river? And also, if a horse can't get across this river, how long would it take a horse to go around? So Frodo's already doing the math in his head, trying to prepare to leave. They get to Frodo's new house, and they find out that Merry has set up baths for all three of the boys, all three of the hobbits. So they get in a bath, they eat some food, and then Frodo's like, yeah, so anyway, I'm leaving. And Merry and Pip are like, oh, we had no idea you were leaving. And Frodo's like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, first of all, you just kept walking around the Shire being like, wow, I wonder if I'll ever see the Shire again. Wow, I don't know if I'll ever be back here again. So they were like, yeah, so we figured out something was going on. So, you're very secretive. Gandalf's very secretive. But we did find one person who's maybe not as good at keeping secrets. Lo and behold, Sam may or may not have blown Frodo's cover. But it's all fine, right? Because Sam had already said, I'm going with you. You can't stop me. And again, I want to touch on that because I do someone wrote in the call for themes and stuff to talk about today. Someone brought this up as well. So I do want to talk about that. Because it's very potent in the book that there's a different dynamic there than just friendship that doesn't, I think, come across in the movies. As it did, well, actually, yeah, I don't know if I hadn't been told in my YouTube comments if I would have known about that dynamic. So anyway, Merry and Pip go, yeah, so anyway, we're coming with you. They specifically say we are coming with you or following you like hounds. And then Sam goes, yeah, well, you did say you would take the elves' advice. And so Sam had fallen asleep at Frodo's feet when we were with the elves, right? I guess Sam wasn't as asleep as we thought he was, huh? We can't begin life at Crick Hollow with a quarrel over beds. No, we can't. We absolutely can't. Okay, and also something we should talk about is the the little hymns that they keep singing. So I wrote a couple times friendship, little elements of friendship and fellowship, and how those two things are go hand in hand. So then they make a plan to leave the next morning to go into the Old Forest. However, before we end chapter 5, Frodo has a dream. And I think it's a dream. It's more of a nightmare, but it's definitely very. It's a dream that foreshadows a lot of the future for sure, which you wouldn't know if you were reading this without having seen the movies, but because I've seen the movies, it's very heavy-handed foreshadowing. Although, is it heavy-handed if you wouldn't know? That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. Anyway, okay, last chapter. Chapter 6, we wake up, we get on the road. So, Foggy, or no. What is Frediger? Frediger takes us to the forest and he says goodbye. So the forest is very much alive. And it's it's very alluded to, and then it becomes very heavy-handed that the forest is alive. Quite literally, the forest attacks the group. Well, first you see it in the paths are changing, and then it's very, I will say, I think this was my parts of some of the journey that didn't seem very actiony, where it's just the details are being described, the forest is being described. Well, the forest I was paying attention to, but there's certain parts of this journey where I was oh my god, can we just can we move it on a little bit faster? Like, there's a lot of words here for not a lot. Not a lot happening. But the forest part I did find interesting because, like, I really loved the Ents, and I'm very excited to see. Well, one, I think that the way Tolkien started writing about the forest and how the forest is alive and alluding to the forest being alive and like the path that's changing, it brings up this element of like, is it for good or is it for evil? Is this going to be an okay thing, or is this forest like walking us down a path of danger? And how do you find out, and how do you navigate that? You just keep moving, because we're not really in a position to turn back, right? So for better or worse, we keep moving. And then the trees do attack us. And Merry and Pip, the trees attack Frodo, Merry and Pip, right? And Sam saves Frodo, and then they go to save Merry and Pip, and they can't get Merry and Pip free. But it's okay, because then all of a sudden this character named Tom Bombadillo comes out of freaking nowhere. And we talked about Tom Bombadillo last week because I had been listening to a podcast that brought him up. And he is, if I'm understanding correctly, he is like a character that was created because it was a toy of Tolkien's children. But so Bombadillo saves the boys, saves Merry and Pip, the hobbits, and he has lilies, which I feel like lilies might end up being important. So he saves Merry and Pip, and then he invites them to his house for food, where it's old Tom Bombadil and the River Daughter. Okay, end scene. We ended at Tom Bombadil, not Bombadillo, I guess, just Bombadil. So we ended at Tom Bombadil's house. So we start in the Shire. We make our way to we make our way to Buckland. Thank you, Wild. And then we go into the forest and we end at Tom Bombadil's house. Whew. Okay, summary achieved. Great job, everyone. Thank you for hanging with me. Okay, so I'm really enjoying this series. Thank you, Ultimate. I'm Dominic Noble's analyst, and in Dominic Noble's analysis video, the coolest character from the Fellowship of the Ring that wasn't in the film, he names Farmer Maggot. I was quite sad because they call him Fatty. I hate that name. Frogadier, whatever his name is. That character, hit or miss. I see that he can be important, like if Gandalf does go to Buckland and then he's there to say like, hey, actually, so they're here. Here's where Frodo is. That would be helpful. Where is Gandalf? We don't know. Your YouTube also hates that name? Well, I don't even have any like I think YouTube just hates that name, not even my YouTube. I think that's just like an automatic, because I don't have any like moderators things set up, so that's just a YouTube moderation thing. We can't begin life at Crick Hollow with a quarrel over baths. I thought that was they had so much fun in the baths too, and they deserved it. Farmer Maggot does get a name check though right before they fall down. Oh yeah, because that's in the movies. It's Sam and Frodo leave on the adventure, and then as they're walking through the Shire, they run into Merry and Pip. So that's an interesting change as well. And I think it's like in the book, obviously it makes sense that it's like a different integration, and it's not like, I actually think it's better, because it was for a little bit in the movies confusing. It was like, who the frick are Merry and Pip? Like, are they friends? Are they just hobbits? Like, what's the relationship? And in the book, it's very clear that like Merry and Pip are Frodo's best friends, and Sam is Frodo's employee. And that's very important, because the book very much emphasizes that Sam is working for Frodo. Sam is not just there as a friend. Sam is a friend. And I think that line between boss and employee, or those lines blur more and more and more. But Sam is Frodo's employee. There's surely, maybe the Shire has a different name for it, but he's the gaffer's son. Nice thing though is that after they fall down, they say something, can't remember exact dialogue, about taking a shortcut to where the Pippin says mushrooms. I love that. Some poems make it into the final text almost untouched from the first draft. A lot of Hobbit dialogue also makes it into the final. Interesting, because the story will get so much deeper. That is interesting. How do you guys feel about the poems? Because I didn't love them. I tried to read, like, I think I had to read each poem like 5 times because my eyes would just gloss over trying to read them. There's just something about them that like was incredibly hard for me to even focus on. I don't know what it was. Like, the poems themselves were not bad, but the integration of the hymns and the poems into the book and into the dialogue was odd for me. Does the book have the spiders in the willow tree like the PS2 game had? No. The what? Random? I don't think so. Tyson said to me he really writes with a lot of words and over-describes things, and said it's fine, that's how my brain processes information in real life. Yeah, I was saying that, like, I am not turned off by Tolkien's writing for the most part. Like, he is very descriptive, but also this world is incredibly complex. Like, he put so much of his time into it, and I can respect from a creative and like in a literary standpoint that he invested so much of himself into the books. It is also it's a very large world, and for the most part it flows, but yeah, the poems do take me off. I read the first 2 or something, then I tried to give them as much attention as possible, but I did kind of just start to glaze over them and gloss over them because I just couldn't. I don't know what it was. I think it's because like I want them to mean something, and maybe they do, but maybe you have to have more context like maybe they mean something later. Martin Hill found the poems annoying when I first read the book, but they have grown on me and I appreciate them this time around. Yeah, that's kind of, I imagine. I feel like they're very nuanced, which is great, I think nuance is phenomenal, but yeah, it's definitely like a first read thing. I don't know that they're necessary. I don't know that they land. Old Man Willow, Tom Bombadil, Goldberry and the Barrow-downs is a bizarre entrance to the wider world the friends have to undertake. It is wonderful, isn't it, Steve? Some of the Bombadil dialogue when he's saving the hobbits gets given to Treebeard. Oh, that makes so much sense. Treebeard is incredibly Bombadil coded. Yeah, you're so you are so right. I think the forest is more dangerous by nature. Old, wary of people who can burn it down, chop it up. And then that was, well, and so as we're talking about the poems and stuff, there was that moment where they were singing and they said something about like the evil or like killing the trees, or they said something silly, burning it down, and the trees started to get mad, and that, yeah, yes. They're like, hey, Elle, watch the frick out. Don't you frickin' dare threaten us right now. Yeah, which I think like the forest as a character, the world as a character, essentially, right? Like, you see the world as a character a lot in this book. I adore the poems personally, but they may be an acquired taste. I think the poems, yeah, I have no like ill feelings towards the poem, but they don't land for me on a first read through. But I respect them, Wild. I do. Fredegar will show up in a later chapter for a brief scene. Okay, Kendra. Okay, Kendra. Tolkien stated that Sam was based at least in part on the enlisted soldiers he knew as an officer in World War One. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. But I think they were just how the people spoke, entertained, sang, etc. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it seems like it's a very hobbity thing to sing songs. The song rhythm underlying the poems is very unfamiliar to most modern readers. We're not used to folk songs. Fair enough. And that's fair enough. Also. Yeah, I think the poems are, yeah, I think I do think the poems are wonderful. But yeah, I would be lying if I didn't say, I don't know if I need them. You know what I mean? Let's see what, I just want to double check something. Okay, cool. I like how we randomly break into pop songs or reference to music, or like how you, yeah, yes. I think, so what Rachie said, for anyone that's watching this later and not looking at chat while you're watching it, like how we randomly break into pop songs or references to music past, or like how you anxious sing when you play games, Lippy. And that is actually, yes, that's 100% something that I do. And that's that does make it incredibly relatable, because I do that. And I've noticed a lot of people do that. Okay, let's look at some of these, some of the things people wanted to, let me go a different way about this. So now let's break down some of the like quotes, themes, etc. So we've talked a little bit about Sam, right? How do you guys feel about the dynamic between Sam and Frodo in the book versus the movie, or just in general? Imagine you walking through a forest. Me walking through a forest? I probably would also sing. I'm starting to get in the mood to watch the movies again. Fair. I would 100% be singing randomly. I would. Yes, I absolutely would 100% randomly freaking sing. I think what it is with those is like, I'm always looking for, I am reading Tolkien's work as if every single word has like an underlying meaning. And I think what doesn't land for me in the poems on my first read is that, like, even having watched the movies, it doesn't feel like it's like foreshadowing or I don't know. It doesn't feel like it has purpose, aside from just like some friends singing in the woods. They cast a 20-year-old Frodo instead of a 50-year-old, so they made them more teenage friends. Yeah, because they don't really tell you his age in the movies, huh? Behind the scenes draft. In the earliest version, Bingo goes off with two of his nephews, Odo and, oh yeah, because it was the names. A lot of the names are different in some of the earlier writings of this, or not like any of the published works, but in the original writing. Frodo will eventually, in several more versions, be called Pippin, and Bingo will be named Frodo. No Sam in this early... Oh. Sam wasn't in the earlier drafts? Sam was added in? A master-servant relationship in the film would have jarred with modern-day audiences? Well... Yes... I mean, I guess I'm not seeing it necessarily as master servant. I think like that would jar in any audience. I think any sort of like servant, like I mean, I don't know. I think like there's, I don't feel comfortable calling it like master servant relationship, because that feels too like slavery themed. I think it's like, it's a classist, like there's a lot of classism involved in it, for sure. I think the movies do a good job of expressing Sam's loyalty as a friend to Frodo, but in the book, he's also loyal as a personal servant. I agree with Martin that the movie audiences may not have liked it. I think the relationship between the aristocrat hobbits and Sam is engaging. It's definitely I'm just not comfortable calling it master servant. I'm just simply not comfortable with that phrase, is what I'm saying. And yeah, I think it like employer employee. If we can just switch up our language there, I think master servant is maybe like a theme or a trope that people are comfortable saying, but it's not. I don't think it's a very gracefully aged classification of what's happening here. And if we can, yeah, I would prefer to call it employer employee. Remember that 50-year-old in Hobby's ears is basically human. Yeah. A lot of poems are things he had already written and then reused. Oh, I see that. Yeah. Yeah, because it's, yeah, because I see that it's like, it's not oppressive, but like the phrase, like the term master servant is like a very oppressive phrasing of it. So if we can just be a little more mindful about how we phrase that. Sam's loyalty does shine through. Well, I think they did make, I mean, Merry and Pippin seem, I mean, well, they're in Buckland. And Merry is a Brandybuck, which isn't that like one of the more prominent families in that area. I think what comes across in the book is that like Sam is willing to do the things that Sam, I don't even know how to phrase it. I don't know. Maybe we'll circle back to that. I will say, okay, I'm going to read through some of the comments that were left on today's post in the community section. So D20 plus 40. Hi, hello. Thank you so much for last week. And thank you again for commenting this week. I too enjoyed that Frodo was a little petty when he left the house to the Sackville Bagginses. He left like the dirty dishes and whatnot for them to clean. But I have to disagree with you. You say D20 plus 40. Let me know how you feel about this, chat. Does the name Crickhollow not instantly and vividly conjure the most cozy, idyllic, warm cottage on a cool evening scene? Absolutely not. Absolutely not for me. Maybe I'm alone in that. But Crickhollow makes me, I don't know what it is about that word, but I think there's going to be cockroaches. Crickhollow to me sounds dirty, messy, and muddy and buggy. And I am so appreciative of you, but Crickhollow does not. I do agree with you that Tolkien is a great linguist and namer of things, and generally a good namer of things, but he also named a farmer Maggot. So maybe he also named a character what is Fatty's name? What is Fatty's other name? It's so dumb. It's also so forgettable. Frediger. So I don't know. I have a few questions on Tolkien's naming things. It sounds haunted to me. Left of love, I agree. I can't extricate Crickhollow from what I know it to be in this text, so I can't really answer that question fairly. That's fair enough, Wild. Oh, Buckland is the family name of the chief aristocrat in Buckland. Okay, or Mary's last name, whatever it is. Merry and Pippin's fathers were both the heads of prominent families, and for that matter, are cousins to each other and Frodo. Yeah, oh yeah, and they do call each other cousins, don't they? I wasn't sure if that was kind of like a friendly, like some people will call people like their sister or brother in modern day, and they won't be siblings. Sounds like a rundown shack by Mud Puddle. Okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm not alone. And if you do think that Crick Hollow sounds like a cozy, idyllic, warm cottage on a cool evening, I support you. I do support you, but I just do have to wholeheartedly disagree. It absolutely does not conjure up that for me. Crick Hollow is not somewhere that I would go willingly. If I was like renting a cottage and there was like Crick Hollow, yeah, I probably wouldn't rent that one. That would not be somewhere I would vacation. Okay, one of the quotes that D20 put in is, just why Mr. Frodo was selling his beautiful hole was even more debatable than the price. And I agree, that is a very funny, like, probably Tolkien didn't know what he was doing there, saying that Frodo was selling his beautiful hole. But we can agree in the year 2023 that sentence couldn't give some people a chuckle. It was Crick Hollow sounds like a location on a map in a horror game. Yes, I can see Crick Hollow being what's that game that came out like today or this week? That new Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. That's funny. That's vivid to me. If you say Crick Hollow is a scene for a horror game, absolutely. I can even picture, I could start building a game around Crick Hollow. Okay, I feel like this might be a good conversation to have. Okay, Lord of the Rings is often portrayed as 4 friends save the world. Okay, we did kind of get into this. But sadly, there are classist power dynamics between Frodo, Pippin, and Sam. Presently, Sam appeared trotting quickly and breathing hard. His heavy pack was hoisted high on his shoulders, and he had to put his head on the tall, shapeless felt bag, which he called a hat. Yeah, it is very, like, I think the movies just didn't, I mean, yeah, maybe they were just making it more palatable for modern day. But yeah, to me, a crick is just another way of saying creek. That's what, yes, a small stream. So the house is a valley by the stream. Okay, see? And I think that's why when I hear the word crick, I think mud. I think I'm right there with you, Kendra. I've lived in a house in the English countryside, and that's the kind of name the country houses there have. The first thing I get from Crick Hollow is hollow. It's in a lower spot, with the ground sloping up around it on most sides. And Frodo did choose that location of house because he wanted to be able to, like, have a house that people wouldn't notice if he was there or not. He wanted to be able to sneak in and out, but I don't think he at the time knew he was going to be leaving as soon as he is. Maybe it's just because I'm American, but anything that ends in hollow automatically makes me think Deliverance. James. I don't think I've seen Deliverance, but I understand. I understand that there's a movie out there. There's a movie out there that's traumatized all of us. I'm joking. But if you guys are looking to be to have a little trauma in your life, might I recommend the movie The Whale? That movie is the best movie I've ever seen, but is also single-handedly the most traumatic, heart-wrenching movie ever. I just posted my reaction to it, so if you're interested in that, I would recommend watching it. But best movie I've ever seen, absolutely traumatizing at the same time. Fredegar is a medieval name. Okay, thank you. Tolkien picks words based on language and location, so every word in the Shire is Anglo-Saxon. Then you have to see a lot of new words in Bree. In other languages as they travel further. That makes sense. Yes. Yes. And this is good to remember. I'm not super, yeah, I guess, and that's not truly something that I like pick up on a ton, but I'm always happy to have like be reminded of it in these sessions, y'all. Banjos and family trees that are flagpoles. Banjos and family trees that are flagpoles. Oh, in Deliverance. Oh. Is that what you mean? In that movie? Okay. Let's read some of these quotes from Nick. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out of your door. You step into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. Isn't that... That's in chapter 3. Bilbo says that to Frodo. Yeah. There's a... Who here tends to be... do you guys feel like you're a very grounded person? Jeddah? I'm sorry. My brain just stopped working. Hi, welcome in. Do you guys feel like grounded? You're grounded or you're more airy? Like, do you feel like you need help like grounding into reality, or do you feel like you're maybe like sometimes too grounded in reality? Or that you're naturally grounded in reality? Because I think I might be too airy. I do. Oh my God. Thank you, Nick, for getting this quote in this section, because I also highlighted this in chapter 3, Gildor, who let's actually talk about more about Gildor and the elves, but let's start with this quote. The wide world is all about you. You can fence yourself in, but you cannot forever fence it out. That quote, I could go down a road of existential crisis about that quote. You're too grounded in reality. This kind of thing is your escape. I understand that, Wild. I understand that. I see the reality around me, but like I tend to be like a little more airy. But back to this Gildor, I loved. Okay, it was obviously like something I'll say is that there's something about the pacing, the writing, and like the elements brought into this story that help you see that like there's an urgency. Like, we're not rushing to the finish line, right? By no means this times 3 are we rushing to the finish line, but there's an urgency and like a stress to the story as it's unfolding. And what I mean by that is that like you come across these characters, or you're reminded in these different ways. Like, you're reminded in the way that we see the first Dark Rider, and then Pip is like, you know what, actually I don't think we should sit down to eat. I think we should keep walking. At least I think it was Pip who said that. And like you see this like a hobbit bypassing a meal to continue this adventure. Like, they would only do that under an element of stress, right? One would think. So, and then meeting Gildor, and Gildor, the elves, inviting them to join them for the night and keeping them safe for the night is critical to their journey to Buckland. But also Frodo's conversations with Gildor and like understanding the elven race, and I think Gildor might be my favorite character that we've passed by so far. Also, I know that there's a giant delay for you all, and I'm not sure why. I wonder if there's something I can do to minimize that in the future. That's good. That out. Isn't a hoblet a halfling? Yes, I believe so. What exactly a hobbit is has always made me wonder. Are they a smaller type of man? Yes, a halfling. That's right. Are they related to what, Rachel, do you know what is a halfling? Do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger. Do not meddle in the affairs of dragons, for you are crunchy and good with ketchup. What? I actually had some quotes that I highlighted myself from when we talked to Gildor. And I'm in chapter 5 trying to find the elves, and I'm just like, where's the elf quotes? Okay, yeah, yep. I actually put 3 exclamation points next to that one about the fences, because I think that if we force ourselves to be one thing or to live one life or to do the things that people expect us to do and do only that and only live that one way and never branch outside of that, life will come for us eventually, a cross between a fairy type creature and a human. Okay. No. So yeah, so hobbits are even in the movies they call them halflings. But yeah, so like Rachel said, they're a cross between a fairy type creature and a human. So they're half human, half something else. The prologue makes the claim that hobbits are vaguely mannish, but also half of the size, seldom reaching 3 feet tall these days, hence the moniker halfling. A race related to men that branched off in the first stage, yeah. So half man. Half man is what it sounds like. Yeah. So I really liked that when we were talking to Gildor and Gildor said, we said, okay, yeah, so Gandalf didn't show up and I don't really know what to do about that. And then Gildor goes, well, yeah, do not meddle in the affairs of wizards, for they are subtle and quick to anger. The choice is yours to go or wait. And then Frodo goes, okay. And it is also said, go not to the elves for counsel, for they will say both no and yes. And Gildor just goes, for advice is a dangerous gift, even from the wise to the wise, and all courses may run ill. You're good. So they're a smaller type of man. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, smaller type of man, but more connected to nature's simple things like fae. Yes, thank you. They're half man. There's something like fae or yeah, but half they are descendants of man. Oh my god, courage is found in unlikely places. Be of good hope. And then Gildor just leaves us. Oh, but he does call us an elf friend, capital E. And I highlighted that and I said, because Gildor says, I name you elf friend. And may the stars shine upon the end of your road. Seldom have we had such delight in the strangers, and it is fair to hear words of the ancient speech from the lips of other wanderers in the world. Because Gildor knew who we were before we had to be like, how the heck do you know who I am? And he's like, don't even worry about it. Are orcs immortal? No, I don't believe so. Even in that, Gildor shows his wisdom, right? He knows how dangerous advice is, especially from someone who cannot see all ends. So he always has absolutely wild. I think that the elves, I think that Gildor is a phenomenal wise character. What did I write about him? I said Gildor is calm and wise. Yeah, that's what I wrote in here. And I just think it's such a it's so true. It's so frustrating when someone won't give you a direct answer or enable you, right? They'll be like, oh, well, so, you could do that or you could not. And it's why won't you just tell me what to do? And it's I don't think I don't think that we should be forcing other people to do things, like, right? I think you can give people advice, but to impose like your worldview on a human is not necessarily like a best case scenario. No one really wins there, right? Because then you kind of like, I don't know. I think that if you don't know why you're making the decisions you're making, then at some point, if you don't have someone forcing you to make certain decisions, you'll make decisions that don't really align with that, or you'll feel like suffocated because you've never made your own decisions. So I do think there is something wise to like, I can't actually tell you what to do, but I can listen to you and I can have a conversation with you, but I'm also not going to tell you how to live your life. I love that Frodo could speak Elvish too. I think that they foreshadowed that in the beginning of the book too, because they said that Frodo and Bilbo were friends with the elves, or there were rumors in the Shire that Frodo and Bilbo were friends with the elves, right? And then I love that when we saw the elves, at first I just thought that like Frodo knew the elves, but then I found out that Frodo was like, how do you know who I am? So he didn't, but the elves knew who Frodo was. They knew Bilbo, I would imagine. Well, they did know Bilbo because Gildor said he'd seen Bilbo twice, but he was mysterious about the second time. It's never specified whether orcs are immortal or not. Oh, well, okay. Aren't orcs like corrupted elves? Are they corrupted elves? We haven't really gotten in the book. We haven't really gotten a lot of orc content yet. I'll be honest with you. But I also thought maybe it should have been laid down stronger before the elves weren't. Oh, that Frodo could speak Elvish. Well, see, I don't know, because they foreshadowed it a bit. But when else would he have, like, when else would Frodo have spoken Elvish, you know? Like, I was happy enough that I was able to recall that they had said that Frodo and Bilbo knew the elves. So I imagine that Frodo knew Elvish and knew of the elves and etc. from Bilbo. That I was content with that. We've had no background on orcs to this point. Okay, we're only in chapter 6. Thank you, Wild. If they come from elves, they should also be immortal, right? Well, we haven't really gotten, I mean, maybe. We have not met cave trolls yet either. Yeah, we're only on chapter 6. So where we end the story at for what we're talking about today is we've just met Tom Bombadil. So we have really just started the journey. Sam, Frodo, Merry, and Pip are in the forest. Not only does Frodo know Elvish, he knows the ancient version. Oh, yeah, you're right, because they said something to that effect, didn't they? I remember reading the word ancient at some point. Yes. Okay, let's see. What else have you all left? What other treats have you all left for me in this community section? Oh, yes. Okay. In chapter 5, this is a good quote. You can trust us to stick to you through thick and thin to the bitter end. And you can trust us to keep any secrets of yours closer than you keep it yourself. But you cannot trust us to let you face trouble alone and go off without a word, which that's such a beautiful, Merry says that to Frodo when Frodo learns of the quote unquote conspiracy. And what I love about that is that Merry pokes fun at Frodo because Frodo was incapable of keeping his own secret. He just kept walking around the Shire being like, I'm gonna miss the Shire. I don't know if I'm ever gonna see it again. Oh no. And like, well, and Merry knew about the ring too. So, there's also that you know, helped Merry fill in some holes and blanks and etc. But he in that full sentence he's like calling Frodo out, and then he's being like, but you don't get to leave us, like we're coming with you, we're your friends. The elves and dwarves are men and not unknown in the Shire, although rare. They stay out in the movies. I think in the books though, Eric, it says I don't know if that's necessary. The Shire knows of the elves and dwarves, but the Shire also like found it very peculiar that Bilbo was friends with elves and dwarves. Like they weren't unknown. They weren't like like a fairy tale thing, but they weren't like, hobbits were not friends with elves and dwarves. They made that very at least not Shire hobbits. Yeah, they did talk heaps about Bilbo telling stories, teaching him things, but they didn't mention that he was taught High Elvish. Feels like they could have mentioned that. I'm sure he taught him many things. Maybe it's one of those things that that in the moment Tolkien was like, you know what? This feels right. Yeah, they kind of just passed through. Yeah. I don't think like they weren't unknown, but they also weren't like hobbits weren't friends with elves and dwarves. No Conspiracy Unmasked stuff in the first draft. Also, still no Sam. Andrew, you're a legend for bringing. Andrew is bringing in like old draft knowledge, which I really freaking adore. Because I think like I read the intro, like there was like 20 pages of like how to read this book and like, well, not necessarily how to read it, but like the background of the book and like the 50th anniversary and blah, 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 blah. I mean, not blah, 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 but a bit about Tolkien, how Tolkien wrote, like the history of the books, like all the history of the books having like mistakes, etc. Oh, what are these little hearts? Oh, thank you, whoever is hearting. I've never seen that before. Thank you. Thanks. So thank you. I'm a big fan of hearing how the book evolved, because I think like Tolkien did spend a lot of time. Nowadays books are written very like contractually. I think you're hard pressed to find a book that isn't like there's a contract set and like 9 months later that book is published. First books are probably different, but like well-known authors that like release a lot of books, like there's a lot of ghostwriters out there, etc., and like whatnot. And Tolkien, the way books came about in the past was very much, it was a different process than it is today. Today it's much more of an industry and a profitable industry, and so there's a lot of business behind it and things have to keep moving. And if there's an author that's hitting the mark, then they've got to get those books on. They better get them out quickly. Edge, hello, just listening here, excited for this conversation. Thanks for being here. It was like you should read The Hobbit, learn these things, because I wrote it there and I don't want to tell you again. And you know what, well, I think too he's just kind of like, well, if Tolkien is a very descriptive author, but if he was telling us everything and we didn't need to know everything, I think he's just being like, you know what, you'll fill in the blanks, hopefully. Doing housework and listening, Sean, thank you. Lurking and listening, oh, like always appreciated. I'm just glad I'm so incredibly grateful. I've been looking forward to this all freaking day. I pulled myself away from the pool to be here happily, but I mean, I was having a great time in the pool. Okay. Oh, a few chat messages. Okay. Tolkien's day job was that he was a college professor. He wasn't a professional writer, so he had to do his college professor things. Writing the books could wait. Yeah. Well, he also like he wrote all what we call them, like the 3 books. Or technically the 6 books, but it's like to him it's one book. So he wrote that entire thing at once. So that took a long time. And that was before he published anything. He wrote that entire thing. Lurkmaster over here. Fucking love you, Juice. Fucking adore ya. I think that not telling us everything gives the impression of a much larger world beyond us. Yeah. It also, like, these books are quite big enough as it is. So I see and I feel the, like, oh, well, they could have told us that. And I see and I feel that. And I agree. And then there's also the other side of me that's like, well, and I don't think there's very many things that Tolkien didn't eventually like drill down. I think if Tolkien was alive and we were talking to him, he would absolutely have a reason or like have drilled down certain things to like the bare bones. He would be able to tell you the day a blade of grass popped up in the Shire. I mean, I'm being a little dramatic, but I think he was a very detailed world creator, and so there's much he left out, and he, you know. Okay, on the 4th of March 1938, Tolkien wrote a letter to his publisher. The sequel to The Hobbit has now progressed as far as the end of the 3rd chapter, but stories tend to get out of hand, and this has taken an unpremeditated turn. So the first message of a rider on the road when the hobbits are hiding. Round a turn came a white horse, and on it sat a bundle, or that's what it looked like. The figure uncovered its nose and sniffed, and then sat silent as if listening. Suddenly a laugh came from inside the hood. "Bingo, my boys," said Gandalf. "What?" I am for sure lost there, Andrew, but I still appreciate it. It is also just chapter 3 when we meet Gildor. We are still meeting and learning about the characters. Yeah, that's true. And I think we will forever be meeting and learning about them. I think it's fair to say, like, oh, I wish I would have known that Frodo could speak Elvish. But then I think we can also, you know, we're here to have these discussions. That reminded me of something I wanted to say. Oh, so I do know that, so the history, the timing of these books, he wrote The Hobbit, and then The Hobbit, his publishers wanted more Hobbit, but if my understanding is correctly, Tolkien wanted to build the world out more before he wrote another Hobbit book. And so that's how we got Lord of the Rings. It's because he was like, he'd alluded to so much of this world that he wanted to kind of break it down and like understand the world fully before he got back to the Hobbits. Later on, he does tend to go on and write about 3 pages of how water flows down the mountain. Oh, thank God. I mean, I will say there, yeah, because and that's why I think criticisms are fair, or like, hey, I wish I would have had this, because there were definitely a few moments where I was like, are we okay? We're still just having a conversation about mushrooms. I mean, the mushrooms did come back to be an important part, but yeah, there are certain times where you're like, okay, so really, is there a point to this? And there is to some extent, right? But also it's like, okay, snap, snap, buddy, snap, snap. Sometimes it's like you get your food before you get your cocktails at a restaurant, you know? Sometimes that's how this book feels. The original rider on the road was Gandalf. Oh, this version was quickly edited and turns into an unknown rider in a black cloak on a black horse. And then that's who Merry is? Is that the instance of the rider we're talking about? Instead of Gandalf, it's Merry? Because the first rider we come across is evil. The first few chapters are to firmly establish the theme of common good stock of country people. Yeah, there's a lot of setup. There's a lot of world setup, character setup, and rightfully so. It's a giant freaking world. The unpremeditated turn in the letter was the appearance of the Black Riders. Oh, okay. Okay. I think I understand. I think I see what's happening. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Marco put this quote in here. For me, one of the quotes that I really love is the one that Bilbo says, there was only one. Oh yeah, we did talk about this one, but I think it's worth saying again. There was only one road, that it was like a great river. Its springs were at every doorstep. Oh wait, no, we didn't talk about this. There was only one road, that it was like a great river. Its springs were at every doorstep, and every path was its tributary. Man, Tolkien he had a way of looking at the world. I'll say that much. He had a way of seeing the world so descriptively too. That's what I want. Okay. The first appearance of the Black Rider won, but in the draft was Gandalf. What? Oh, so I was wrong in understanding that. Oh, wow. Interesting. So I wonder when he decided to keep Gandalf missing. Here in Australia, we kind of feel like that about roads. Anyone in LA? Anyone just lived through their first LA hurricane? What a wild time. I hope everyone is safe thinking about y'all. I have family that lives out there. I used to live out in LA. Okay. And let's keep going. Oh, Wild. Let's go. Wild left us some good stuff in here. Just up the road could be from Melbourne to Queensland. That sounds like a Midwestern, an American Midwestern. We'll drive anywhere. I'm just going up the road 5 hours later. Or could be a bunch of side streets. Okay, yes. Okay, so Wildband brought up the notion of elf friend. Gildor adopts a somewhat ceremonial air when he bestows the epithet on Frodo, so we know it must be of some honorific of importance. Wild, you are a phenomenal writer. Even if we, like the Hobbits, don't yet fully understand it, we should probably make note of that title and pay attention for hints as to what it might mean going forward, both in terms of what it means for Frodo and the world in which he lives and what it means for the themes the author wishes to convey to the reader. Yes, I think that it didn't, well, so we know because Gildor told us that they wouldn't normally have invited anyone to walk with them. They quite literally laughed in their face that they were like, well, hobbits don't make good company. Why would we let you walk with us? But they do once they find out about the Dark Riders. And then in the end, Gildor has this conversation with Frodo and he calls him an elf friend. And I do think it gives him this, like, it's almost like a blessing. Because then Gildor also says, like, I will tell my circle of people that you are out here, that you're on this journey, and to keep you safe. So I'm like 99.99% sure I'm 100% sure we're going to see more elves. But, you know, at this point in the story, we wouldn't really necessarily know that. Some of the hobbits that get revealed in these shows. Oh, yes. Okay. We see very much that the Black Rider is somewhat synonymous with fear. Ooh, I can't wait to see how Wild goes into this. Okay. The trio of walkers has their first encounter with a Black Rider, and the description in this text is so very creepy to me. The prose does an excellent job of evoking a sense of fear and dread about the rider. Then Sam tells us, hold on. I want to go see if I can find that real quick, because I know I have... Oh, and I do think something that's important to bring up in this point is that... Yes, okay, so something we haven't talked about yet is the ring. Frodo keeps wanting to put the ring on, and it's like, I wrote a couple of times and I was like, is the ring trying to keep him safe, or is the ring trying to harm him? Is the ring trying to be found, or is the ring trying to hide? And I honestly, like, the way that it's written, it wasn't I imagine, not knowing what I know, the ring is trying to be found, right? But it also is written in such a way that it was like left it up in the air. It's easy to forget how closed off the different races are to each other in this age, which is why it's special to be called an elf friend. Yes. Yeah. Yep. I think we see that like mildly a few times, that the different races are like not, like they're not like enemies per se, but they just kind of all do their own thing. They live in this world where they're not necessarily out to like help people. Nose itches. Okay. Round the corner came a black horse, no hobbit pony, but a full-sized horse, and on it sat a large man, who seemed to crouch in the saddle, wrapped in a great black cloak and hood, so that only his boots and his high stirrups showed below. His face was shadowed and invisible. That is, like, so descriptive. Also, that paragraph is so small compared to what Tolkien could do, and it really does invoke this, like, fear that is kind of bone-chilling. A sudden, unreasoning fear of discovery laid hold of Frodo, and he thought of the ring. He thought of his ring. He hardly dared to breathe, and yet the desire to get it out of his pocket became so strong that he began slowly to move his hand. Michael, you're never late. You're right on time. A little long cooking dinner. I hope dinner was good. Especially hobbits who are fairly isolated from the wild. Yes, hobbits have very specifically isolated themselves, right? And so it's also no surprise that other races would be like, a hobbit? Why would we stick our neck out for a hobbit? Okay. Then Sam tells us the story of Gaffer Gamgee being uncooperative with one that was seeking Baggins a bag end. A masterstroke of characterization I find that to be. We have just been taught to fear these writers when we're told about the Gaffer standing up to one. Wild that is. So well said. I hadn't even thought of that. So for additional context, we're talking about when we see the first Black Rider and hold on, let me turn off my auto white balance because it's getting a little messed up when I move my hands. That'll be fine. Okay. So we see that we had heard as Frodo that there had been someone looking for him, and Frodo was so tired of people like asking where he was, what he was doing, that he just didn't go talk to them. He heard this conversation, and then Sam brings it back up and he's like, oh, actually this is so peculiar because there was someone that matches this description that my dad had seen. But the Gaffer was like, the Gaffer told the mysterious guy that Frodo was going to Buckland, but he also just like was very curt with the guy. He was like, who are you? Later that day, they have a second encounter with a Black Rider who is then driven off by the approach of high elves. Frodo is impressed that the elves utter the name Elbereth Gilthoniel. We should tag that name for later to remind us to find details on what it means, okay? And claims it marks them as special, the fairest of folks. These elves, who are clearly very powerful, are then made anxious by the hobbits' mention of Black. Yeah, we've talked about that a few times now, haven't we? Which further heightens our fear. Yes! Okay, there's so many, and that's what I was saying earlier, like, they did such a good job of showing us that there's so much to fear, that there is like a lot happening, and that like we should be scared. And it's in those little moments of conversation, etc., where we go, oh yeah, we need to like hurry up. And it's interesting because then you're contrasted with, like, for the most part, Pip is very unbothered. And then when you find out that Pip knew all along that there was something peculiar going on, and he knew about the ring, and he knew that Frodo was going to have to leave, and all along Pip was being like, so like, well, but we should eat 5 meals a day. And it's like, Pip, if you knew all along that we were running from something, why were you acting like you didn't? Why were you putting us in harm's way, little guy? The next day at lunch, they have another frightening encounter as the whale. When the whale goes up, when the I assume the Black Riders are calling to each other, that churned my stomach. Yes, the Black Riders really well, and I think that they don't say it right yet. Like, there's like, they say Black Riders, they refer to the Black Riders in the plural. They think there's at least 2 of them, right? We do hear that near the end of it. But like, when you're reading the details like this, and you're seeing that like Maggot had seen a Black Rider, they'd seen a Black Rider twice or 3 times already. There'd been a Black Rider in the Shire. You start to realize, like, okay, there might be a few of these guys roaming around looking for me, and that alone is peculiar and frightening, right? Yes, Maggot threatening the Black Rider is hilarious though. At the start of chapter 5, we get another look at a rider slinking around looking for them when they go. Yes, when they got on the ferry and Mary is terrified. Yeah, when they get to the other side, when they get to Buckland and they look back and you hear them describe that there's someone like looking at the ground and then like that slinks away. It is actually very scary. Then, knowing all of this, the conspiracy is fully unmasked in chapter 5. The hobbits declare that they know what Frodo is up to and are at least as aware of the dangers as Frodo is. Yet they have made plans to either go with him or else to keep his secret. But also, like, well, Mary did come through clutch, right? Because Mary set up, like, packed all of this stuff and was ready to go the moment they got there. Like, God had them bound, but also was ready for the next part of the journey. Pip, all along, was, like, taking his goddamn fucking time, eating every single meal he fucking could on the journey. Oh my God. I forgot that I'm on YouTube and I can't cuss like that. YouTube will take this video down. Well, they won't, but if I probably have hit my F word allocation for this stream. Finally, they take to the Old Forest, which is rumored to be all sorts of dangerous, and as the chapter describes, it turns out to be. These hobbits are incredibly brave. Also, for context, I'm reading. Oh, how did I do that? I'm reading. Well, I was reading. Where did it go? It like, I scrolled my wheel, I guess, and it took away where I was. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. There is. I want to go back to where I was. This is where I want to be, I think. There we go. Okay. Danger books. Danger. Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to make that smaller. Okay. The third, oh my God, Wild is amazing. This is, so for those that don't know, I post a, in the community section. I think I've been saying I was going to do it on Sundays, but I think Mondays just work better for my cadence of my weekends and whatnot. On Mondays, I'll post something that says, hey, post your themes, your topics, your quotes, etc. that you want to discuss this week. And then once we go through like the outline of what happened in the chapter, we'll break down what like you guys left for me. So much swearing in Tolkien. The third thing that is definitely worth a mention is the section in the story is Wild. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't offend you with my comments about the songs earlier. We could we could spend hours analyzing the rhyme and meter and dissecting the differences between Hobbit songs and elf songs. But I think it's simply worth appreciating the depth of world building that these little rhymes give us. Their mere existence makes the world seem so vast and alive. You know what? That's so beautifully said. Stretching well beyond the borders of what we get to see on these pages, each is probably worth a second or third read. Yes, okay, and that is what I was like. I imagine that they were not offended. Carry on. I imagine that the songs were trying to like give me something, but I don't know. My mind wasn't like sitting in my mind yet. But I think that I agree that it is likely something that hits when you read it with like either more context, or when you go back and read it, or when you like read it again after maybe like a few chapters. This pattern continues through the text, but this is the first time we really get to engage in the songs. Okay. Thank you for that. You really hit it home with that. This entire thing is so like everything that you wrote, I so appreciate, because it's so well written and bullet pointed and nails a lot of things that like I had already been thinking home, but is like broadened on a lot of it too. So I'm so grateful for your insight. Lastly, Tom Bombadil. Who in Middle Earth is this bloke, and why do I want to be like him? I'm incredibly excited to learn more about Tom Bombadil. I think that it's like the difference. I have been really enamored from the differences from the books to the movies. The movies to the book so far. Like the different characters and whatnot, I've really enjoyed. It's nice how competent overall the hobbits are as a group, whose big conflict as a race were rude people. Whose biggest conflict as a race were rude people. The hobbits are like, they're goofy, right? But they're also like, they're a little sly and they're stealthy and they just kind of have this like, I just want to eat my food and like have a good time. And also fuck you. If this gets demonetized, I only have myself to blame. How many times should one reread a chapter to get it? Back in like 8th grade, almost 40 years ago, I remember plowing through the last book, hoping I would understand better. Well, that's a good question. I think, you know, the first thing I'll say is I think sometimes it takes years for things to hit home. Like, there are movies, there are books, there are TV shows that I have tried to read or enjoy at one point in my life and they didn't hit, and then I've gone back to them and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. Whereas like the first time I tried to enjoy them, I just didn't. And I think with a book like this, it's like for me, there's enough that I'm enjoying that if I'm like the poems aren't hitting for me the first time through, like I'm jealous that they're not hitting for me, but I'm also not going to spend 30 minutes trying to make the poem make sense in that moment. I'm just going to like try to remember to go back to it at a different time. It's interesting that the first adventure outside this Shire has nothing to do with the riders or Mordor or elves or what the hobbits might expect. I also found that interesting. It was like, it was not as direct or like purposeful as a journey as I originally thought it would be in the books. I'm curious how Tom is going to land with me this time. Sometimes I like him. Sometimes I think he brings the story to a screeching halt and end up just skipping this chapter. Oh, I can't wait to see how you feel. I assume we'll talk more in depth about him next week. Next week, we're doing, I think 7 through 9. I'll have to do. Oh, it's in Discord, isn't it? Because I made all of those. Oh, I can't see. Oh, wait, I can. Yeah, next week is chapters 7 through 9. Okay. A couple of quotes I like just because I like them. Bilbo used to say that there was only one road, that I was like, oh, yes. Oh, yeah. This is exactly. Marco brought this up too. One road, that it was like a great river. It springs where at every doorstep and every path was its tributary. Only one capital R road. Shortcuts make long delays. Shortcuts make delays, but ends make longer ones. Fucking man. Amen to that. That resonated with me deeply. Okay, circling back to Nyx. Do we want to talk about, well, I mean, I think we just should, or I can talk about it. You guys can chime in. I wonder if it would be easier now that I have a few more years under my belt. Very likely, yeah. But also maybe not, and that's okay too. I've probably read every chapter 20 times, and I still learn new things every time, so there's no telling how long until I get it. Yep. Yes. I would second that statement. I've been in a generally more patient mood with books lately, so I think I'll enjoy it. I have too. I've been in a patient mood with this book. I've also been reading it in a way that I don't normally read books. So like, I do wonder how I would find the book if I wasn't reading it in such a purposeful manner. Like if I was just reading it to escape, I wonder what it would be like. But I'm reading it to analyze it, which I do find fun. There was a scratch that needed to be itched in my brain, and it's hitting the spot. Anyone in chat ever listened to Phil Dragish audiobook of Lord of the Rings? No, I have not. He mixes music from the movie soundtrack with original sound effects and voices every character, and they are amazing. Phil Dragish, okay. Let me write that down. The most Hobbit sequel things still remaining in the final text is the internal dialogue of the fox that sees the hawk. Thank you for bringing that up, actually, because I had to reread that when that happened. So for context, there's a moment in chapter 3, I believe, when Sam, Frodo, and Pip are on the beginning part of the journey, right, to Buckland, and they take a nap, and there's this fox comes to see what's up, and this fox is like, what? Oh, just some hobbits sleeping? I guess that's a little peculiar. Usually they don't just sleep out here. But then he's just like, all right, well, I'm just going to move on with my day, see what else is out here. And it is very funny that that Tolkien took a moment to like go into the perspective of a fox and then just like, boop, now we're back to Frodo. I love the books. With my ADD brain, I have to read along with the audiobook or I'm zoned out during lengthy yes. Yeah. Left of Love, I have found myself doing that as well. I find it quite nice. Well, it's also kind of nice because it almost feels like, I think like for people, because I'm not diagnosed or anything, but I have trouble like focusing and finding pause and and a lot of other things. And I kind of feel like it's similar to body doubling. Like I'm more productive when I'm like working in tandem with someone, which is why like I usually have up a Twitch stream or something of a friend, even if I'm not hearing them in my head, like I see them on my screen and I feel like we're like working together. But I almost feel like when listening to the book and reading the book at the same time, it's like a body doubling effect. You've listened to the Phil Dragish audiobooks, Eric? It is royalty free because it's a fan project. Okay. I'm circling that then. You love the fox. Oh my God. See, look at the joy you brought into chat by bringing up the fox. Something that is so easily looked over. Like how many people are, I mean, maybe there's more reason to it, but the world around us is a character at all times. And every once in a while, Tolkien is like, let's bring this character in. Let's bring in this other character. And then that character in question is a fox. You only read the last two in 8th grade for smart kid cred. I was quite lost. I'm going to buy on Amazon tonight and hopefully catch up with everyone here. Yes, Sean. Yes. Okay. So yeah, we're currently in book 1 of Fellowship of the Ring, and it's where we just, in the description, we just finished chapter 6, but do it right now. I like to compare the book, the films, and the radio adaptation. Oh yes, I've seen. Is it the BBC radio adaptation? And what isn't Farmer Maggot? Farmer Maggot is in the radio. Isn't in the radio version. Phil Dragish's audiobook is free on Internet Archive. Okay, I'm gonna look into that. I would like to do some Phil. I think I would like to do some Phil Dragish reaction videos, maybe. I was surprised by the fox moment too. Don't think any animals talk in the movies. Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, well, we get like what the trees talk, so you know, I guess you could win some, you lose some. Back to laundry lurking again. Thanks, Sean. I really like the BBC radio play version. It pops up every once in a while on my Spotify. That's like a recommendation. The voice acting and music are excellent. The Andy Serkis. Yes, I have Andy Serkis written down too, but it's copyright. Yeah. Understandably. I'm actually surprised that the Phil Dragish one isn't. It still feels like in some way it's got to be copyright, but I mean, I guess, you know. Ian Holm plays Bilbo in the films, but is the voice actor for Frodo in the 1982 radio adaptation. Huh. Okay. This is beautiful. This harkens back to Frodo knowing how to speak Elvish. And this is a comment from Nick F. And Nick says, Frodo is called a jewel among hobbits by the elves when he speaks in Elvish. Even though Frodo knows very little of the language, the hobbits are given a wonderful night of rest and protection. Knowing the languages of other people is a very powerful and endearing, even in our world. I think that goes to show that, like, seeing other races, as humans, I mean, because elves and hobbits are different races, right? And seeing them and respecting them and respecting their culture and like doing your best to understand their culture is a really strong trait to have. I mean, it's an inner monologue of the fox, though. So, I mean, like, it's not like talking out loud, but inner monologue of it. It's one of the reasons he got the part for the movies, but he's also a great actor. Ian Holm plays Bilbo in the film. Oh, yes. Oh. He did a great job as Bilbo. Okay, yes. Thank you, Nick. Nick also brought up again that the chapters we've read so far in the book really highlight that Merry and Pippin are like actual like friends of Frodo. They didn't just like run into him and now they're stuck on this journey with him. They're friends of his, and they're pretty ride or die friends. I want to be able to speak all languages. Me too. I've quite a few animals talking like actually talk versus like inner monologue. Because yeah, that's a fair point. It was an inner, like the fox didn't like talk. What the fox wasn't like saying to Frodo like, oh, I guess you guys are just sleeping. The fox is just like, oh, this is peculiar. What a peculiar thing. Some hobbits sleeping at a tree. And then it's like, the fox found this to be peculiar and wondered if there might be something bigger. And there was, but he would never know of it. And that's also like, it goes to show that the world around them, well, the world around us is a character. Like, if the entire world doesn't get to keep up on the journey. You know what I mean? Like what did the fox say? Something like that. Merry and Pippin get the short end of the stick in the movies compared to who they are in the book. A little bit they do. Like you can, I feel like it's easy to pick up on in the movies, but also it's very, they don't nail it home. They don't spend a ton of time focusing on it, that's for sure. I created a character for a superhero role-playing game that their power was basically Universal Translator. Their superhero name was Lexicon. If this is Frodo's book, how does he know about this fox? That's a great question, Michael. It's a great question. It raises, a good point, and I'm not sure. How does Frodo know about the fox? Or is that just one of those mysteries? One of those little Tolkien, a gift from Tolkien. Man, okay, so Nick says the ring is trying to be found by the Black Riders, and that's why Frodo wants so badly to put it on. And that's absolutely terrifying. The ring as this powerful being is so freaking scary. YouTube, please, I'm doing my best. I'm so sorry. I'm just really passionate about this book. I just have so many things to say. Please don't be mad at me. I'm really nervous for Barrow Downs. There was something in this book that said like, oh, and then like that way would be Barrow Downs, but like hopefully we don't have to go there. And then and then when we get to Bombadil's house, beyond the house you see the Barrow Downs, and I'm just like, I don't want to go, but I don't want to go there. Maybe he invented the inner dialogue of the fox to give third-person omniscient view. Yeah. Found a plot hole there, Michael. I know Michael's asking the questions. The ring being a character of its own is yes, it's like, it's bone-chilling. Because you could just be like, oh, there's just, when I read it, I kind of took it as like, Frodo has this like great sense of the world around him, and he's able to pick up on the changes in the atmosphere, and he's able to notice when things aren't quite right, and maybe that is a little scary, or maybe it's a little like unsafe, and he's able to hide, and he sees the ring as this opportunity to like be better at hiding, when in reality what it more likely is that the ring itself is like, hey, just put me on, no big deal, just if you put me on, then they'll know you're here, and then because in my head, if he puts the ring on, then the Black Riders will be like, there's the ring. I knew it. I sniffed it out. thought this part of the book might have been written by Bilbo, and it would be a pretty Bilbo thing. I mean, it's possible. Well, it could be possible. It could be. I mean, to be fair, I think anything is possible. I'm always of the belief that, like, it's fantasy. It's fantasy, baby. Anything's possible. At this point in the story, the ring's potential powers are quite... Yes. Yeah, that's true. We don't actually know. We know that we know where it came from now. We know that the ring can be used to turn the person wearing it invisible. But other than that, we know that it's important and people want it and it's powerful. But we don't know what that power means. Gandalf seems to talk to everyone. Maybe he told Frodo about the fox seeing them when Frodo was writing the book and he added it in for color. Maybe. But that's good. Yeah, that is getting a little... I mean, it's good, like, banter. But it is a little, it could potentially be getting into, like, future stuff. One could assume, at least. Frodo would have talked to Bilbo. Well, we haven't gotten to that part in the book yet, though, Michael. So we don't know that. We don't know. At this point in the book, we don't know if Frodo will ever see Bilbo again. We can't assume that Bilbo will ever see Frodo again. We can't assume that Frodo will ever go back to the Shire. I think we as viewers love that Merry and Pippin in the movies for their actions and words in the story, and less for their relationship with Frodo. I think because we know their background in this. Yes, yeah. It's nice to see them fleshed out as characters, though. Because they are such endearing characters in the movies. Khalid, thank you for... Oh yeah, literally chapter 7 is in the House of Tom Bombadil. So we do streams for the first book. Well, streams for Fellowship of the Ring, books 1 and 2 within that, are every Monday now through pretty much the end of September. Next week we're doing chapters 7, 8, and 9. So that's in the House of Tom Bombadil, Fog on the Borrowed Downs, and it's exactly where I just said I didn't want to go. At the Sign of the Prancing Pony. Oh, next week is going to be good. Yeah, so we only have 3 chapters next week. 7 through 9. In my book, that's pages 153 through 203. So is that just like 50 pages? Not so bad. Purchase and Scented Kindles 4th edition, the proper edition with buttons. I need no commission. I'm just grateful people are here to have this conversation with me. There were a lot of science fiction and fantasy stories before Tolkien, but the deep world building has an auditory and cultural aesthetic that was unique, and we do kind of expect that now, don't we? Yeah. I mean, I know he's literary in the literary world, and I know someone commented on our first book club, and they were like, "This isn't." Someone said it wasn't fantasy. I disagree. I think it is fantasy. I think it's recognized as a fantasy book, like in libraries and whatnot. It's recognized as a fantasy book. In the literary world, I think it's recognized as a fantasy book. In my opinion, it's fantasy. Because of the strong relationship, we will be more drawn to the characters. Yes, so beautifully said, Rachie. That's the beauty of character building. And that's the beauty of, like, there's little background elements in this that build that character, right? Like, even just getting to know, like, the general nature of hobbits builds character around hobbits in a general, like, really zoomed out perspective. And I think that's beautiful. I'm so excited for these next couple of chapters. I think, so we have chapters 7 through 9, and then I think our 4th book club is the rest of it. Yeah, and then we do 10 through 12. that's on Labor Day, so that one might move. But next week is chapters 7 through 9. I can't wait. Are there any final themes, any final comments, any final words of wisdom, takeaways, etc., that you want to bring up today before we head out and we get back to reading? Well, I mean, maybe you're reading more tonight, maybe you're not. I don't know. I will say also, there were a few times there was like, I was noticing that there was a point where there was a hymn, and I noted, I was like, wow, the timing of these sometimes is very poignant. Well, I had a lot to say about them, but record scratch. What else would it be but fantasy? It's literally the template for almost every work of fantasy since. Yes, I agree. I don't, and I should disclaim, I don't think I think they had like put the reason in it, and I have been this last week was really busy for me on a like emotional level, and then on a like a work level and whatnot, and so was not as able to be like in my comments as I normally would like to be. My birthday was good though. Thank you for asking. It was good. It was good. Today was really good. I took myself to a 90-minute massage, and then I hung out at the pool. Happy birthday. Thank you. Don't read the Borrow Downs chapter at night. You can't stop me. You could stop me actually, but you won't probably. We covered everything I wanted to talk about regarding the text, but we didn't get a birthday party update. Birthday was good. I went out Saturday, or worked Saturday at a bar, and then I hung out with my bar work friends Saturday night, and that was really nice. And then Sunday I woke up and I finished editing. Well, actually I didn't finish editing. I woke up really sad. Let's be honest. I'm having an existential birthday crisis. I also think I'm quitting my job tomorrow, but that's a different story. They're one and the same, but so I woke up, was really sad, but I was at the lake. My parents have a lake house, and I jumped in the lake, and I had this thought. I feel like it feels like something Tolkien would write. And I was like, I wanted this job because I thought it would make me like a more stable, desirable human. And instead it made life less desirable to live. And then I was like, damn, I've got to quit. So now I'm just trying to figure out what my timeline is. Just wanted to bring up how wonderful I find these videos. Welcome to the good side of YouTube. Welcome to the good side of YouTube. But yes, then I went to dinner with my cousins last night, and that was really nice. I had the best peach cobbler. I had two really amazing things. The dinner was fine. It was lackluster. I had this phenomenal blueberry cobbler with this cream cheese ice cream with a honey drizzle. It was so good. And then I had a banana old fashioned, and I am still thinking about that old fashioned. It was so good. I was so worried it would be too banana-y, but I do like artificial banana flavor. And so it was so good. And then today I woke up, I got myself to the gym where I got a 90-minute massage, and then I hung out at the pool until 3 p.m. And then I came home, I showered, and I got ready for this. And then this is the cap to my birthday weekend. So thank you for seeing me to the end. And thank you for asking. More than maybe you wanted to know, but you know what? You got it. You got it because there's one thing, if you don't know about me yet, one thing you'll learn about me is that like I will always tell you probably more than you ever wanted to know. For better or worse. For better or worse. Okay, y'all. We're going to call it there. So that's the Discord link. You can join the Discord. I know some people joined last week. Join if you want. There's a new channel in the Discord so we can talk about book club openly in there. I also have in addition to all of the book one live streams are scheduled here on YouTube. Okay. And in addition to that, I have them as events in the Discord. So James, thank you for the happy birthday. So feel free to join the Discord. Feel free to, post in the book club section. If there's anything that's going to be like a spoiler or whatever, just mark it as a spoiler. Otherwise, just we're just here for bands and for good times and to geek out over a damn good story. And stories in general. I have some tricks up my sleeve that I'm very excited to roll out in some new fresh content in different ways that will be coming out within the next month or so. A couple of different things. So I'm very excited to start sharing those with the world and looking forward to your thoughts. Come to Discord. We are real chill over there. I promise. We're chill. Also, I stream on Twitch 2 to 3 times a week. This week I will be doing Tuesday and Wednesday. So if you haven't followed over on Twitch, do that as well, because we like to have a good time over there. Tomorrow I will be finishing the game Spiritfarer, and then I don't know what we're going to start after that. We've been playing a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3, but that game is so incredibly long. Full-time content creator when you quit your job? No. Definitely not making enough money for full-time content creation, but I am looking for something that is more supportive of my content creation. I also am not making a plan necessarily for that. I just need to write my official letter tonight and then hand it in tomorrow, but I'm hoping to give like a month's notice, planning for them to just kick me out of the door tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But I'll be working at the bar at the lake for the next 2 weekends, and then another weekend after Labor Day in September. And so I'm hoping to find something like that's a little less stable on like what I know I'll be bringing in, but will hopefully support me a little bit more. So I need to figure that out. But if you need this reminder, set yourself up for success. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, make sure you can feed yourself, etc. If you're in a position to leave something that's making you miserable, fucking do it. Fucking do it, because I'm actually like incredibly nervous and like a little nauseous thinking about handing in my notice tomorrow, but also I have to do it for my own mental space. Spoiler, lips be looking cute today. Papples, thank you. It will be good for my mental health. Yes, it will. I was really, really excited for this job, and it just wasn't what I needed and what I wanted, and it's just time to move on. So it took me 6 months. That's sad. Couldn't even have a baby in that time. Not even enough time to cook a baby. Don't cook babies in ovens. Just cook them in your bellies if you want to have a baby. If you want to have a baby. Twitch streams are magical. Yes, I'll stop, word vomiting on you. But at least I won't be, crying to my friends about how sad I am all the time. Mental first. I'm sorry it's gotten you to this point. You know what? It's okay. It's okay. I made 1/4 of my paycheck in one night on Saturday. One fourth. So essentially I made half of what I make in a week in one night, which is not what I can make every night at a bar, but it just proved to me that like I can figure it out. I can figure out a way to financially support myself, And now we understand why everyone there is relatively new. I know, a new girl started today. I wonder how she's going to feel when like on her second day, someone comes in and is like, hey, so I'm leaving. 20 years to raise a child. Sometimes change isn't fun, but it's necessary. I'm just really bad at having conversations like, hey, I'm sorry, quitting. I'm just really bad at that. I'm also really bad at standing my ground, but like I'm doing it. I am going to use ChatGPT to help me write the letter though. Because like, I just don't want like there to be any emotion in it. I just want it to be like, here's what I'm doing. This is my last day. You need to become the content creator for a bar, dude. That would be great. That would be really great. I think that I see a way in which I can support myself, like at least half through content creation within the next year. That's my hope. Or some of the plans I have up my sleeve, I'm hoping they'll take off. Make sure to lean over to her and whisper, "Run." I know. Be like, "Hey, I know you just moved from New York and all, but come here. Let me just look me in the eye." Okay, let me stop dumping on you, and we're gonna end this stream. But thank you so wholeheartedly for joining us tonight. Again, jump in the Discord, jump over to Twitch, follow on Twitter. Those links are all down below in the description of this, and we'll be back for chapters 7 through 9 next week. So maybe start reading tonight, maybe don't. I don't know, you do you. I think read a page an hour, get it done in the next 50 hours. You'll easy. That's math. You're doing it for hotels now, and it's a lot, I bet. If you need someone to read over it with an editor's eye, hit me up. Ooh, I might. Yeah, maybe I'll shoot that to you in a little bit. Thank you for holding the discussion, and good luck tomorrow. You got this. Thank you. It will take a lot of courage because I'm a fucking baby, but that's why I'm telling you guys, because if I tell you, then I can't just come to stream next week and be like, so anyway, I didn't quit because I'm a baby and I'd rather be miserable than be happy. And you guys can look at me and be like, I'll leave you with this, and I'm literally going to hit the end stream button. I'm going to cold turkey end you in this stream. There's a tradition, I think, and I believe it's in Native American culture. And if you bring a complaint 3 times into the tent, on the 3rd time, like they don't have any, like they just don't feel bad for you. They're just like, fucking fix it. And like the first like 2 times, they're like, oh yeah, that sucks. Oh yeah, feel for you. Here's, the 3rd time they're like, what are you gonna do about it then? And I feel like I like hit the 3rd one. And so now it's like, all right, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to quit. Okay, that's it. That's just your reminder that if you keep coming to the table and you feel the same miserable way about something, what are you going to do about it? If you can do something. Sometimes you just can't. But I adore you all. And I'll see you tomorrow over on Twitch. And if not there, I'll see you next week for book club. If you're missing me... Pedro, welcome to the series regulars. Thank you for joining the YouTube membership. If you're missing me, go watch The Whale. Well,